Okay, looks like we're recording.
Great. Well, welcome. I am David Hibbert of South Shore, Montreal, a pastor in South Shore, Montreal, and I'm with Faytene. Whatever time you're watching this, it's Faytene of Forum Canada, and I've invited her, and we talked about why we need to be really talking about politics, and especially here in Quebec. But I want Faytene, if you would just for a minute or two first let us know who you are and what your ministry is about. Okay?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Pastor David, and greetings to all of your people who are watching this right now. It is such an honor. I have such a tender heart and a spot in my heart for Quebec. On my mother's side, my heritage is Francophone, and we had several of our ancestors that helped in the initial pioneering stages of Quebec City. So it's for me, it's always a tender spot in my heart when I get to reach into Quebec, and what a critical conversation. I think one of the things that we've all realized in this season, Pastor David, is that so much of our lives is impacted by who leads our nation, who leads our provinces, that leadership is such a critical thing. And so with For My Canada, we're a nonprofit faith-based ministry. So we're not a church. I do prayer ministry and I do television as well, but our work with nonprofit is primarily advocacy. Mr. David, is we just try to watch what's happening primarily on the national scene, on the federal scene, and we look at opportunities where if people of faith and people with strong values, faith, family, freedom, a value for the sanctity of life, fiscal stewardship, where if we get educated and we get information, that we can be a part of positive change for our nation. And so so we are regularly tracking with the bills that are passing through parliament, these types of things. But right now in the nation, we are on super kind of high alert or high activity. And the reason is because really in the next couple of days here, Pastor David, it is very possible, it's very conceivable that what happens in the next few days here, and particularly in Quebec, could determine who the future Prime Minister of Canada is, particularly in the next half of a decade
Mm.
in Canada, because we are in a major party leadership race right now. These leadership races are what determines whose name is on the ballot at the time of a general election. And what a lot of Canadians don't know is that they can actually be very, very influential at determining whose name is actually on the ballot. And so I've done some research, Pastor David, and I looked at, how Justin Trudeau's name got on the ballot in 2015 and successive elections after that. I looked at how Erin O'Toole's name got on the ballot. And I was actually very, very shocked about two things. Number one, I was shocked to discover that it's actually a very, very small group of Canadians that take a specific action at a specific time that determine who those names are on the ballot. And number two, I was very shocked to see how really those people in Quebec who pay attention and who engage at these critical moments of decision making, that it's actually when a few people in Quebec get involved, it can have a massive ripple effect throughout the entire nation because of how these elections are structured. And I'd love to get into that with you, but that's kind of the bottom line. We love Canada. We love this nation so much. My husband and I and our children, we've lived all over Canada. My father played NHL hockey, and so we were constantly moving when I was young. And my family and I live in New Brunswick right now, but we have such a love for Canada and are fully invested into making sure that we build a better future for our children and for future generations. So that's really what we're about.
Oh, super. Now, before I forget, it's right today is May the 24th. We're recording this. Now, you were coming back to Quebec within 6 days, I think, or 7 days.
Yeah, I'm hoping to. We're talking with our team right now. I was
Okay.
already in Quebec a couple weeks ago, but Quebec is such a high priority in terms of this conversation that I'm trying to get back from the 31st to about the 2nd. We don't have any meetings booked as of this recording, but if people check out our website, I think we've got it going along the bottom there at formycanada.ca. You can see where I'm going to be in Quebec in that time period of the 31st to the 2nd. I would love to meet as many of you as possible in person.
I want to make sure people knew that you're going to be here live, and do check on see where you are. I have to say, with all the things going on with the upcoming leadership race with the Conservatives, I really was confused, frustrated, not sure exactly what to do. But after we talked last week, I made sure my membership was up to date, and I'm rearing to go, just waiting for this election coming up for the leadership, the new leader of the Conservative Party. And that's really what we want to talk about now. Why is it so important, especially for Quebecers, to, if they're part of the Conservative Party, to actually vote for the leader, and if they're not, to consider becoming a member of the Conservative Party of Canada? And you're just now really going to take over and just tell us all the things that you've discovered and how it all works together, and why it's so important that watching on this video tells their friends, their neighbors, and say, if you're planning, if you have conservative values, now is the time to either renew your membership or become a member and vote for the next leader, because that's just in a few weeks, from what I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you so much for Pastor David for bringing this conversation to the people that follow you. So what I'll do here maybe is I'll share my screen, and my presentation is so large that I couldn't actually upload the whole presentation. So I'm just going to have to share my screen here, and you'll see some of our little thumbnails along the side. But I want to show your people what I discovered. And so as I already mentioned, one thing that we've all learned firsthand in this season with COVID-19 is that so much hangs on leadership, right? That leaders determine, the culture of our nation, of our provinces, and how, in so many ways, how our freedoms were allowed to function or not function in the last 2 years. And so Proverbs 29 actually says this, that when the righteous are in authority, or when the righteous are in government, the people rejoice. But when the unrighteous or a wicked man rules, the people groan. And so leadership is so important. So I wanted to first of all dive into what I discovered in terms of how our current prime minister came to be our current prime minister. This chart here that you see on the screen right now, Pastor David, is Justin Trudeau's path to prime minister in 2022. So you'll see there on the top left, in 2008, he was elected as a member of parliament in Papineau, Quebec. And then in 2013, Justin Trudeau put his name forward for the leadership of the Liberal Party at that time. And he actually won on the first ballot, which meant that he was the one that was going nose to nose with Prime Minister Harper in 2015. And that was the year that he won a majority position with 184 seats. In 2019, he was reduced to a minority position by Andrew Scheer and the Conservatives. And then in 2021, he got back 3 seats. And this is the current position that he holds in the Parliament of Canada today. But what I'm pointing out in this presentation that I've been taking across Canada and even into Quebec is that Justin Trudeau would not be prime minister today if he had not first won the leadership of the Liberal Party. And so that was really where I started in my research. And I discovered, I was so surprised by this, Pastor David, that Justin Trudeau only won by 81,000 Canadian votes in 2013. And that's because there were about 104,000 Canadians, 552, that actually participated in this leadership race, but only 81,000 actually voted for Justin Trudeau. So when you compare that to the whole population of Canada, 81,000 Canadians compared to our total population, which is 38 million, means that only 0.2% of Canadians who got involved early in the process determined that Justin Trudeau's name would be the one on the ballot. And Pastor David, a lot of times people will say to me, well, does my vote really make a difference? And what's the point of voting? Because it's just going to go this way or that way. anyway. And this is what I say in response, is that your vote does make a difference. It always makes a difference, but it actually makes more of a difference if you get involved earlier in the process. And a
Right.
lot of people only vote in the general election, not realizing that in a general election, your vote might be one vote out of, say, 20,000 people in your riding who vote. So it's one out of 20,000. But in a leadership race, particularly if you're in Quebec, in a lot of the ridings in Quebec, it can be as few as 100 people that vote in a conservative leadership race. So your vote is one vote out of 100, and that one vote can actually be a full percentage point towards the person that you vote for in terms of the final outcome. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit. And so
Yes.
your vote absolutely makes a difference. And, in 2013, only 81,000 Canadians caught this power and this opportunity that they had, and they got involved. And because they got involved, they were the ones that determined that Justin Trudeau was going to be the name on the ballot. So I did a little comparative here and said, that would be, to kind of paint a picture, Pastor David, that would be like taking the greater Toronto area, the greater Montreal area, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Quebec, Hamilton, and let's add in another 19.45 million Canadians on top of that. And that number, 0.2%, is so small that it's like saying a group the size of Moncton, New Brunswick, or a small city, really politically overpowered or decided for everybody else who was going to be on the ballot for prime minister. And, so I asked the question when I saw this number of 0.2%, I asked the question, who is this? Who are these people? Who is this 0.2% of Canadians that decided who would be on the ballot? And I was, surprised once again that I found out that it was those that simply got a membership in the Liberal Party to vote in 2013, which any Canadian could have done, no matter what their ideological background was. This is something that's available to anybody who wants to get involved in the process. And number two, it was those who actually voted, because sometimes people get a membership, Pastor David, but they forget to follow through and vote. So I like to point that out. The cost of this membership in 2013 was only $10. And the time that it took to do it was really only a few minutes. And so the bottom line is my point is this, is it was a very, very small financial cost, because only members can vote. This is not a general election. This is deciding who's going to be on the ballot representing a political party. And when it's a major political party like the Liberals or the Conservatives or the NDP, that's a very, very important election, because that person most likely will be the next prime minister, or could be the next prime minister. And so this was a very, very small price to pay for a
Exactly.
very massive amount of influence, right? And so in my presentation as well, I'm also stopping at this point to help us kind of reflect on the consequence of that decision, of that outcome. Because what happened was Justin Trudeau, he won the leadership of the Liberal Party, and then it was his ideology that carried the party forward. And so after the Liberals won the next election, his ideology was what kind of pushed the party forward. And so these are some of the things that happened since 2013. These are just some photos to illustrate. Number one, this first photo up here, I'll kind of put the little move it around here. The medical assistance in dying was legalized in 2016. Pastor David, that's now being expanded to those who are not terminal, to those who are depressed, addicted, struggling with addictions. It's also soon to possibly be expanded to mature minors. So what this means, Pastor David, is that possibly somebody who's 16 years old, that's struggling with addiction, that's struggling with depression, that if they could be classified as a mature minor, they might have access to assisted suicide. And, I know suicide is a real issue for a lot of our youth. And I know it's a real issue in Quebec. And so we have to ask, is this something that we're okay with? Another thing that was passed was the legalization of marijuana. And I want to focus again specifically on youth, because at the time that this bill was passed, all the medical experts were saying, listen, if you're going to legalize marijuana for adults, that's fine. but don't do it for youth, because the human brain isn't finished developing until about the age of 25. And so what that means is that the experts were saying that if a young person smokes cannabis before their brain is finished being developed, it can actually stunt their brain development and specifically hinder the executive level function, which is where we create our doctors, our lawyers, our business people, our innovators, our future problem solvers for the nation. And so experts were advising against this. In spite of that, the Liberal government, because they had a majority at the time, just pushed it right through. And we now have legal cannabis smoking for youth, anyone 18 and older. The current status on abortion in Canada is that there are absolutely no restrictions. A woman can abort a baby right up until full term for no medical reason. That baby can be completely healthy. The mother can be completely healthy. And it's still legal to abort the baby right up until full term. And so the Parliament of Canada in 2019 actually gave a standing ovation to a woman's right to abort her baby for no medical reason to her or the baby, right up until full term birth. A lot of Canadians, when they hear this, they feel uncomfortable because Canada is actually the only Western nation right now where it's legal to abort a full term, fully developed child that is viable outside of its mother's body. And so these are some of the things that have happened. Crisis pregnancy centers are now about to lose charitable status. This is probably going to happen any day now.
Yes,
We've had pastors that have been thrown in prison over the health mandates, with 5 pastors now being thrown in prison, several charter rights breaches. In the courts right now, the Honorable Brian Peckford, who's the last remaining contributor to the charter, is now suing the government for breaching his own charter rights, which is incredibly ironic. I put the piggy bank up there next. Another thing that's happened is the federal debt. Some people don't know this, but our current Liberal government has racked up more federal debt in the last 2 years than all governments and all prime ministers from all parties, conservative, Liberal, in the 150 years combined prior to that. So in 2 years, our government has racked up more debt than 150 years in our national history. And all of this, of course, leading to inflation, increased housing prices, increased gasoline prices, and just cost of living. Another thing, we saw earlier this year where the bank accounts of law-abiding Canadians were frozen for political dissent around what happened with the truckers' convoy.
yes.
And, we could continue to go on and on, right? There's been a lot of stuff that's happened since that decision in 2013. And so we need to recognize that these moments where our leaders are being determined are very, very critical. I want to jump ahead to another part of my presentation that I've been highlighting, and that's actually what happened with the conservative leadership race. I'll see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you here. Okay, so this is the data from the conservative leadership race in 2020, and that's only 2 years ago. But in that race, there were 174,000 Canadians that participated in that election to determine who would be the one leading the Conservatives to oppose Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party's policies that I've just rolled out there, some of which I've just rolled out there. And so in that race, 174,000 Canadians participated. Only 90,000 actually voted for Aaron O'Toole to give him the win. And so once again, David, I was so shocked that to discover that that's the exact same number. If you take 90,000 Canadians and you juxtapose that to 38 million, it works out to be 0.2% again of Canadians determining that Aaron O'Toole would be the one on the ballot in 2020 and the one who would be standing up to Justin Trudeau in terms of the federal mandates. And, incidentally as well, some people didn't catch this. It was actually Aaron O'Toole who also tabled the legislation and suggested that it be passed without committee study and without debate right through to the Senate. That could put pastors like yourself or counselors or parents, we don't know how this law is going to be interpreted, that can put you in jail for up to 5 years for having a conversation with someone around a sexual issue, even if that person is asking to have the conversation and asking to have counseling. And so this was actually passed by the leader of the Conservative Party. And at this point, people began to get very dissatisfied with Aaron O'Toole's leadership because they felt like we didn't truly have a conservative that was leading the Conservative Party, but rather we had sort of 5 liberally oriented parties. And, you know, in a democracy, it's very, very important when you're talking about some of these very high stakes conversations about freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, freedom for people to get the kind of counseling that they want to get. You know, it's really important that there's an opposition to some of these things so that there are checks and balances and true debate happens. And so Aaron O'Toole obviously got kicked out of his position with the Conservative Party. And this was actually one of the reasons why there were members in his caucus that felt very concerned that he wasn't bringing a strong opposition to Justin Trudeau. And so that's why we're in a leadership race actually again right now. But once again, I want to point out, what was the cost to that 90,000 those 90,000 Canadians that actually voted in this race in 2020? The 0.2% that determined that Aaron O'Toole would be on the ballot in 2020. You know, and I was once again, you know, surprised that it was a very, very low cost. And I'm going to try to fit the slide here. There we go. Those that got a membership in the party were the ones that voted and that determined that he would be the leader, excuse me, and those that actually voted. And the cost to them to do this was only $15 in 2020. And the time that it took them to do this was really just a couple of minutes. And, you know, this was a lot of power. This was a lot of influence for a very, very small investment into who would give leadership to our nation at such a critical time that has impacted all of our lives in such a profound way. But this is where Quebec comes in. And so maybe I'll hit this one more point, and then we can maybe talk about just, you know, see if you have any clarification questions on anything. Even though Aaron O'Toole won the leadership of the Conservative Party in 2020, he didn't actually get the most amount of votes. And the reason for this is because the party has a point system where every riding across Canada gets 100 points towards who the future leader of the party is. So whether it's a riding in Alberta that has, you know, 2,000 members in that party are in that riding that are voting, or whether it's a riding in Gatineau or Saint Hubert or Sherbrooke that might only have 100 people. 100 people voting in Sherbrooke will have the same political authority as 1,000 people voting in southern Alberta. So Quebec is really the place where a small amount of people can make a huge difference on who the future leader of the Conservative Party is. So in 2020, Aaron O'Toole won because he won the most amount of ridings, but it was actually this woman right here, Dr. Leslyn Lewis, that got the most amount of votes. So she won what's called the popular vote. And if you see this, you look at this map right here on the screen, you'll see that the area that's green, that's colored in green, those are the ridings where she got the majority of the vote. The ridings that are blue, those are the ones where Aaron O'Toole got most of the vote. The ridings that are red, those are the ones that Peter MacKay got the most amount of the vote on the third ballot. But so to kind of break this down comparatively, again, if you have a riding, say a riding like Simcoe North in Ontario, that has 1,500 members in that riding, and let's say all those people go out and vote. Let's say 1,125 of them vote for Dr. Leslyn Lewis. She would get 75 points for those 1,125 votes. And let's say that 375 voted for Aaron O'Toole. Well, he would get only 25 points for those 375 votes. Well, if you come on over, and I'm actually going to change this. Let's change this to Sherbrooke. Okay. And let's say that in Sherbrooke, there's 500 people that vote. that would actually be a lot, because in most of the Quebec ridings, it's under 150 that vote in a conservative leadership race. For 375 votes in Sherbrooke, Erin O'Toole would still get 75 points, to go next to Leslie Lewis's 1,125 votes in Ontario. And so my point is this, and this is one of the reasons I reached out to you, Pastor David, is that, it's very possible that the next conservative leader will be the next prime minister of Canada. I don't know for sure, but it's very, very possible. And it's highly probable that Quebec will determine who the next leader of the Conservative Party is because of this point system. I want to show you one other thing that is very, very important specifically for Quebec. I'm just going to stop screen for a second and share another window here. And that is that I did some research on the ridings in Quebec. And these are all of the ridings in Quebec. And please forgive, my keyboard kind of messed up some of the characters there. So please forgive me for that. But these are the ridings that have under 200 members that are already registered to vote. So, for example, Papineau, as far as my research goes, the riding of Papineau in Quebec only has about 50 people that are currently signed up to vote. And so those 50 people are going to have a lot of influence for their one little vote for the future leadership of Canada. Now, the reason there's so few people signed up to vote in Papineau is because, of course, this is Justin Trudeau's riding. There's very low activity in the Conservative Party, in general in that riding. And so, to be honest, a very few amount of people getting involved will make a big difference. And sometimes people will say to me at this point, well, Faytene, I don't like the Conservative Party. I am not interested in voting for the Conservative Party. And how I respond to that is by pointing out that that's not actually what this moment is about, because this is not a general election. You, by participating in this leadership vote, you're not committing necessarily to vote for the Conservative Party in a general election. As a matter of fact, I always encourage people in a general election to really look at the candidates in their riding, make sure that the candidate is reflecting their views and values. But whoever participates right now at this leadership race point of the timeline will have a major impact on the future of Canada, because no matter what happens, the leader of the Conservative Party will have a lot of influence over our lives, particularly if they end up being the next prime minister, but even if they end up simply being the leader of the opposition. And so no matter how you slice it, this vote will have a massive impact on all of our lives. And so these are some of the ridings here in Quebec that have under 200 members in the riding. Again, I'm not, I don't work for the Conservative Party, so I don't have exact numbers, but this is our guesstimate. And please, again, forgive my keyboard here. It translated everything into Google and messed it all up, but I think you can kind of catch what the ridings are. And so this is a very, very critical time for our nation. And the reason I'm very grateful that you were willing to do this live stream with me is because time is short. It's May 24th right now when we're recording this. In order to participate in this vote, you need to be an active member of the Conservative Party by June the 3rd. And sometimes people will say, well, I don't know who the candidates are. I don't know if there's anybody that represents my values. And what I say is just get your membership, because the actual vote isn't until September the 10th. And so you've still got a lot of time to figure out who you're going to vote for, what the candidates are about. And anyone that signs up through our website, Pastor David, will actually get a voter's guide. We're going to be breaking down, where all the candidates stand on issues that people that connect with us really care about. A lot of times people care about the life issue. They want to make sure that we have leaders that are allowing pastors to teach the whole Bible, that we have leaders that are making sure that our parents can raise their children in accordance to their values. And so we'll be putting out a voter's guide through For My Canada. The actual ballots will be mailed to everybody. The actual ballots will be mailed to everybody probably in July. But the bottom line is people only have 10 more days as of this recording to get that active membership. And the other bottom line is that anybody in Quebec who hears this message and takes this message seriously is going to have a major determining impact on the future of our nation. And Pastor David, I just got to share a story with you really quick, but and then I'll stop talking. But I was in Quebec City with a small church. We had a small gathering. It was probably about 25 people that came out to hear my presentation. And at the end of the presentation, Pastor David, there was this sweet little old woman, Madame Tremblay. She came up to me. She's 91 years old. And she said, Faytene, I've been in church for my whole life. And she said, this is the first time that I ever heard, that I ever understood that I could get a membership in a party and determine the names that are going to be on the ballot. Because once you get to the general election, you have no influence over whose names are on the ballot. And so she was so grateful. And she took a credit card. She went to the back table. She got her membership for the first time in her life at the age of 90. And I share with people, this isn't about the Conservative Party. This is about you being powerful in a moment that will have a massive impact on the future of our nation. And so, there are so many people, Pastor David, that don't get involved simply because they don't know. They just don't know. And so I encourage everybody who's watching this, not only to sign up and vote yourself, that's really important and really powerful. And, for the future of our children and our lives, but also to share this opportunity with others, share this video. Let people know about it. Tell people about our website. I've got my full presentation up there on the website as well for people to watch the entire thing. But let other people know, because we don't want anybody to hear about this on June the 10th or June the 7th and feel disappointed that they didn't find out soon enough and that they didn't bring their influence into this very, very important moment because they didn't know. And so it's really important that we get this information out. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share this with your viewers today, Pastor David.
And Faytene, I have to admit, I had the Conservative Party phone a month ago and said, "Are you a member, or would you like to become a member? I see you have been in the past, and are you planning to sign up again?" And I honestly said, I'm just so confused right now. Does it, what really is my role? Is it going to count for anything? But after talking to you just a few days ago, last week, I guess, I just realized the strategic importance. And like you said, especially in Quebec, I had no idea about this system and how powerful Quebecers' votes really are towards the national party leader. And I had no idea, again, like this, I'm not 90, but I really had no idea that my vote now could determine who's on the, or will determine who's on the ballot in September. And it just, thank you for making it so simple and making it all make. Then I went to your website. You have such amazing resources on your website that people can watch and go through. And then, like you said, the what really touched me also was that you have done all the work for me. It's like I don't need to fast and pray for years to come up for or whatever. I can just go and see uh, from on your website who stands for what, right? Because I watch things and I may get a confused reality of who stands for what, whose values are but or I can just go to your website and you've done all that work for me. So I can just go and say, oh, this person is pro this and anti this. And then I can really make my vote a values vote rather than who's the best personality or whatever. I can make my vote so strategic based upon my values and what I believe to be the most important thing. So Faytene, you've done all the work for me and you've inspired me, you've challenged me. And so, like I said, last week, I made sure I became a member. I actually signed up for a couple of years to make sure I didn't mess up next. And I'm just raring to go now. And I was just so pleased to be able to say, hey, let's make a video and let's get it out to everyone. I'll be posting on Facebook and YouTube and even on our live stream service so that we can maximize the number of people that actually see this video. But just thank you for your sacrificial service. I know that you had shared with me you normally are only away from your family for a couple days at a time, but you've been on this Canadian tour trying to get the word out. No, I just thank you on behalf of our congregation, on behalf of other Christians, on behalf of really anyone who has conservative values. I really want to thank you for all the work you've done, and you, as I said, you've made it so simple, understandable. You've done all the work for us, and I just can't believe at this point that someone isn't willing, well, even to become a member. Just all you have to do is go onto Google and say how to, sign up for conservative membership, and bang, there it is right away. And you click on the button, and like you said, 2 minutes, you're a member. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be putting out that voters guide. I've been scrolling our webpage here so people know we've actually got a page on the website that's completely in French. We've done the presentation a few times in French as well. So if people are watching this and wondering if we have the material en français, and the answer is oui. And so it's bilingual. I can't do the whole presentation in French yet, but I'm working on that. And also people can sign up to be a member through our website. And, people can go directly to the Conservative Party for sure. But the strategic advantage to doing it through our website is that what happens is when you do it through our website, you are letting us know that you are going to be voting and that you want that voters guide. And so that will register you with our email list. And so, like I said, the deadline to sign up to vote is June the 3rd. The ballots will probably be mailed out July. And so anyone that signs up through our site, they're going to get walked through the entire process. We're going to let people know, okay, the ballots are coming. Watch your mailbox. If they don't show up, make sure you reach out to this number and we'll walk you through. We'll be like a customer service hub for people of faith that want to vote. And then at the end of the line, we'll give that voters guide as well. We're still developing it right now. Actually, I just had one of the candidates today that called me back and I want to ask him some questions. So, a lot of times people are asking, are there any pro-life candidates? The answer to that is yes, there's one. And that's Dr. Leslyn Lewis. She is the only pro-life candidate that's running in this current election. People often ask about the vaccine mandates, about religious freedoms, parental rights. And so, like I said, we'll be breaking all that down. But if you already signed up to be a member of the Conservative Party, but you didn't do it through our website, then you can still go to our website and get on our email list. As a matter of fact, if you just scroll down here, there's a section there that says already a member of the Conservative Party, but want to get on our email list, then you just sign up right there and you'll get, oh, sorry, it didn't go to the page on the viewer.
Okay. I could, there it is. Yeah.
It's
Sign
that
up.
button.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've tried to put everything right there on the homepage so that it's super easy. People don't have to figure out where to go. So yeah, it's our honor to serve in this way because, I guess I want to close by saying this, Pastor David, is that this isn't a job for me. This isn't like some kind of a gig or something that I tried to drum up just because I had nothing to do with my time. I'm a mom. I have a 6 and an 8-year-old. I am so concerned about where our nation has been going. I have so many friends that are in ministry that now are under the threat of that legislation where they could be thrown in jail for up to 5 years for saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. And, I just really believe that if we will show up at these critical moments, if good people of faith and values show up at these defining moments, I believe that there's still a chance that we can turn some things around if we get some different leaders into position that care about these things. But if we don't show up, somebody else is going to, and probably somebody that we disagree with. If we don't show up, we can bet if we don't show up that things are going to continue in the direction they've been going. But if we do show up and we say, listen, parental rights is important to us, protecting women from being bullied into abortions that they don't want. These are important things to us that, pastoral protection is important to us. And if we don't show up, that message is never going to be brought to the table. And so, in my parents' generation, I think they had the liberty to not get involved in politics, and things would generally still go in a good direction, but I just don't think
Yes.
we're there anymore. And this isn't about being political in a negative spiritual sense. This is about caring about our future, caring about our children, caring about our nation, caring about our nation. And like it says in the book of James, it says, when the power is in your hand to do good and you don't do it, God actually calls that sin.
Yeah.
And in Canada, we've been given a power, and it's called democracy. And if we don't use that for the betterment of our children, our neighbors, um, I don't think I just don't think that's a good thing if we don't use the power that we have. And so that's what this is about for me. I want to be able to look at my children in the eyes at the end of all this and say that I fought in a moment that really mattered for their future.
Yeah.
That I did everything I could to get this message out. So again, I appreciate you allowing me to do that today.
The, I that's the point that I really do agree with you and believe that this next vote is going to be the most critical vote we've ever had in the history of Canada in terms of of determining our future direction. I can't believe the spiral of downward changes this last 6 years. We really do have to stand up now. And I really appreciate you making that so clear. Just a thought for me, I heard about you years ago. And of course, I had met you through my son in law, Sammy. But, one day someone put a book into my hand called Stand on Guard. And when I saw the because I always thought that America's kind of got Christian foundations, but Canada, we were all just fur traders, we voyagers and all this. But when I read that book and realized the incredible biblical and Christian foundation of Canada, and I also caught your passion for Canada in that book. So I'd still at this day encourage everyone to buy that book, Stand on Guard. But when I saw your passion for Canada through that book, I started to take notice in you. So I've been not voyeurizing you, but following you over the years. Just checking out what you're doing, and just again, one last time, I just so much want to thank you for your service to Canadians. Like you said, not a job, but really a life calling and a passion. And I just bless you for that and thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Pastor David. And, one person is a voice, but together we're a force for
Mm,
positive change in our nation. And so please, Quebec, rise
yes.
up. This is your time. And so often we say those words, rise up, but we don't always have a practical action attached to it. And it's more of a call of the heart and the spirit. But I
Yeah.
but I believe that this time the practical action could not be clearer,
Yes.
get that membership,
Yeah.
particularly if you're in Quebec, particularly if you're in one of those key ridings that I put up on the screen a few moments ago. And your vote is going to mean everything for the future for our nation and for our children. I really believe that Quebec is key, which is why I'm coming back and excited. Hopefully we'll meet some of your folks in person.
Okay. Thank you so much, Faytene.
Thank you, Pastor.